In this game of choice, we are constantly pitted up against two clear routes when it comes to thinking about anything. For example, doing anything, whether it be something that's seen as a desire or something that's seen as a form of discipline, we have choice. An example could be to get up out of bed. The first semi-conscious thought that runs through our minds when we wake up from slumber is, do I need to get out of bed? And immediately our mind is starting to play this game where our ego, being the self-gratification, self-serving side, is already making up reasons and using tools and using inhibitors to try and stay in a self-gratification state, which is to say, probably to stay in bed. And that's the immature side. That's ego. It's really self-gratifying to carry on sleeping when you're tired. I mean, it just feels natural. Your body is craving more sleep. And you feel so warm and comfortable, and everything's perfect as it is. Let's just stay here. So that's of desire. Contrast that to the chatter and the conflict that happens with decision making, is that there's also a voice that says, no, you must be disciplined. You must be mature. You must fight against your urges for self-gratification, for desire, and do your job as an adult, as a more mature form of being. You must practice discipline rather than give in to desire. And so it's this narrative of battling in our minds with every decision. Do we succumb to desire, that of the ego, or do we apply discipline, that of higher frequency, that of maturity, that of high? That's not to say that decisions of high are only made when high, but it's the practices of discipline, the practices of maturity. They are what help us mature and start to consciously take control and start growing up and shifting away from the grips of ego and desire and immature decision making and thoughts. We must learn how to self-moderate. We must learn how to be self-disciplined. I think that often at times I'm conflicted and I drive myself crazy because I've always got this chatter in my head, not with words, just thought forms. It's a tug of war where both the ego side and the high side, they're fighting for my attention, and they're fighting for my decision making because they're trying to decide for me. And so if I listen to either one, then I become either one incrementally. And so the objective here is, with the acknowledgement of understanding and categorizing and characterizing higher forms of being, higher forms of maturity and evolution, we must apply more mature forms to help us not succumb to simple, immature desires, but rather allow us to practice self-control, grow up, and prep us for what's needed in order to grow up and mature. And it seems like a contradiction, because if we are to advocate attuning to a higher frequency, and sometimes that can be using cannabis, that can be seen as an immature practice. That could be seen as succumbing to desire and craving and addiction. But that is if it's not self-moderated. That's if we start abusing the tools that allow us access to different things like higher frequencies momentarily. If we identify it, if we see it, if we're aware. Because in a higher state, we still have that brain chatter. We can still succumb to desires and self-centeredness. So we can be lazy. Absolutely. Remember, whatever you focus on when you're attuned, when you're higher, it will be magnified. It will be intensified. So if we focus on our desires, we will intensify our amount of laziness and our commitment to desire. If we focus on discipline, we will magnify those feelings, and it will allow us, it will facilitate whatever we need to do to become more mature, to become more disciplined. I like using the polarities and the dualities example here, because so far I've only categorized ego and high as two distinct players in this game of choice in our psyche, in our consciousness. Who's to say there won't be more? I'm sure there will be. But right now, it's a life of duality. So, one is desire, and the other one is discipline. And I think maybe they are names of tools too. So far we've uncovered different names to identify different tools and abilities, let's say, that can be used by ego and high in this game of choice, that they play with us. This is a fresh new concept. So, just like with everything that comes out streaming from my thoughts, they're just forming.